The divine mercy is relentless. Very important thing though. The divine mercy is after us. I know I've said it a million times in different forums, but the Bible is not the story of our quest for God. Our quest for God is just not that interesting. It's true, it's valid, but it's not that interesting. What's really interesting is God's quest for us. God's after us. God's mercy is coming after us. Now, how do you see it in the story? Well, Jesus going into Samaria, right? So he begins in Judea in the south. He's going up to Galilee in the north. Most pious Jews would have gone around Samaria because it was unclean. It was the land of the half-breeds, right? So pious Jews went around it. Jesus goes into it. That's the first thing. He's after the marginalized, the half-breeds, the forgotten, all that. He's after us. He's going over the boundaries that we set.
What was that? Over there. There. I paused only for an instant. He looked deep into my eyes, and I into his. And I knew what he wanted. Me. No, I shouted, and fled even faster. The nearer I got to the voice, the harder it became to resist. In words that were no longer soft or sweet, I was no longer called, but commanded.
Come inside. Find what you need in me.
The doors opened, and I entered. Behind me, the doors closed. But what was this? There were no strong arms to provide anything. It had all been a facade, all just a devious mask. I had run to empty promises of happiness. Through its captivating smile, the manipulating voice had spoken only lies. Inside I was alone, disillusioned and filled with anguish. The voice was just a machine. And once the machine was finished with someone, all that was left were the ruins of what you had been. Confused and overwhelmed, I fell to my knees. All I had tried had been a waste of time, of energy, of hope. Nothing I had fled to had ever provided the comfort I had sought. My strength was gone. All that remained were broken pieces and shattered dreams. Now that I could see the machine for what it was, the voice no longer tempted me. It had no love to give. Its assurances were deceit. Slowly, gradually, a resolve began to grow within me. Slowly, gradually, I began to build a shelter. No longer would I look to the pleasures of the train, nor would I listen to the promises of the voice. I would work to help others, those who were broken and left in torment in this devastated place. This would be my shelter. Through work and kindness, I would find relief. I would forge contentment with my own hands and earn significance by doing good. Though my toil eased some of my emptiness, there was still a void, an aching for more that never left. Then, one night sleeping in my shelter, I awoke to a sound I'd heard long ago. The sound of footsteps bounding across the dry earth. Footsteps coming for me. With nowhere to run, I stepped out, resolved to face him. And he was there. "Leave me be!" I screamed, and desperate to make him go away, I picked up a heavy stone and hurled it. As the stone pierced his flesh, I heard a gasp from heaven. But still, he did not move. In his eyes, I saw only forgiveness and acceptance, as if he had stood there before. I fled back into my shelter, the only place left to escape. I hated him for interfering. I hated myself for the hurt I had caused him. In the darkness of my despair, I lost faith in ever finding happiness. I must stop thinking about him, how he had never stopped seeking me, how he was outside waiting for me. I would not yield to the great pursuer. I must stop thinking about the truth I now knew. He had always watched over me. He was still watching now. I turned at last to the final escape, the final flight to complete oblivion. No more dawns, no more struggles, no more thinking. I would sleep, 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 and wake no more. But then, in utter desolation, like a gentle breeze that washed over and around me, I felt the tenderness of his presence. I had no fight left, so I finally listened.
Which of those you fled to loved you?
I heard him say, and my heart answered, none but you, only you. And then he said to me,
You will have no rest until you rest in me. Come, take my hand and rise.
in the darkness of my gloom, I saw his outstretched hand, and I heard these words,
Though you would not see it, I am the one you have been seeking all your life.
In that moment, after all the endless miles and all the fruitless searching, I finally quit my running and reached out to the one who had sought me for so long. The lost one was finally found. He required nothing beyond acceptance. The peace I had longed for but never known flooded my heart. And in having nothing of my own, nothing but his love, I found everything I had lacked. I was finally complete, finally at rest in him.
When the Fellowship is trying to find its way through the mines of Moria, Gandalf comforts Frodo by revealing the existence of a higher authority guiding his fate.
There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.
It is the first real reference to a godlike presence in The Lord of the Rings, a notion that is not to be overlooked as it implies that the characters act within the context of an unseen force working towards its own purpose. A second reference to the existence of this force can be found when Gandalf fights the Balrog and reveals himself to be a servant of the Secret Fire.
I am a servant of the secret fire. The dark fire will not avail you. Flame of Udun!
To understand what this presence is and how it affects the story, we must briefly turn to Tolkien's Silmarillion, the expanded mythology on the creation and history of Middle-earth. Here we learn that The Lord of the Rings takes place in a universe created by a single god, here named Ilúvatar, meaning the One and Father of all. Ilúvatar created the Ainur, his angelic spirits, and all the living beings in Middle-earth, and kindled within them the secret fire, also referred to as the Flame Imperishable, which can be seen as the gift of an independent existence, containing self-awareness and, most importantly, free will. The The flame imperishable was the greatest gift given by Iluvatar because, as Matthew Dickerson writes, it is this freedom that enables them to participate in Iluvatar's music and to themselves assist in subcreating new beauty. In fact, so great a gift is it that none other than Eru Iluvatar himself can give it. His sole ownership of the flame imperishable came to the great envy of his most powerful Ainur cult, Melkor, who, similarly to Satan in John Milton's Paradise Lost, wanted to replace his creator and take away the gift of freedom. He desired rather to subdue to his will both elves and men, envying the gifts with which Iluvatar promised to endow them, and he wished himself to have subjects and servants, and to be called Lord, and to be a master over other wills. He became Morgoth. As you can probably guess, his chief lieutenant and representative character in The Lord of the Rings is Sauron. Although this barely scrapes the surface of the Silmarillion, it already reframes the central conflict in The Lord of the Rings into one with a greater cosmic significance. For Tolkien, it was obvious that the ultimate power only belongs to God himself, and so he writes, "In The Lord of the Rings, the conflict is not basically about freedom, though that is naturally involved. It is about God and his sole right to divine honor. Sauron desired to be a god king, and was held to be this by his servants. If he had been victorious, he would have demanded divine honor from all rational creatures and absolute temporal power over the whole world. In other words, it's a war for the soul of Middle-earth, a fight to remain under Iluvatar's grace, to keep the flame imperishable burning in the hearts of every living creature and not fall under the dominion of a corrupted angel seeking absolute power."
This isn't just another martyrdom. This is the manifestation of the eternal mystery of divine supremacy. That what is supreme in God is not reducible to the fact that he's the creator and can dominate the entire creation and every creature, even the big beasts and all of that. No, the supremacy of God is the supremacy that is eternal. It doesn't depend upon creatures to dominate. No, the supremacy of God is precisely the glory of the love of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit that is at the very core of Jesus' being as the Son of God, who becomes the Son of Man, so that through suffering, death, and resurrection, he is going to not only manifest the inner logic of the love that is the Trinity, he is going to convey that to us precisely by allowing us to receive him in his resurrected body in the Eucharist, as I treat in my book, Hope to Die, because the real presence of Christ's body, blood, soul, and divinity is precisely the body that was crucified, died and buried, and then is now resurrected. It is the resurrected, glorified, ascended, enthroned humanity of Christ that we receive in the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ.